you're not alone. I used to think that sentence was meant to comfort people. Now I understand it was a warning disguised as reassurance. After I found the photograph in my mailbox, the one of me asleep, taken from inside my own bedroom, I stopped turning the lights off at night. It wasn't bravery that kept them on. It was the need to see. To confirm that whatever was happening wasn't just the slow unraveling of my mind. I tried to hold on to routine. Routine feels solid. Safe. I made coffee even when my hands were shaking too badly to drink it. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, reviewing the files I had managed to copy before that administrative building disappeared from public records. 7 case files. 7 silenced incidents. 7 attempts to document something no one wanted officially acknowledged. I had salvaged fragments. Photos. Audio clips. Internal notes. Enough to see the pattern. And then there were the images of my apartment hallway. In each photo, at the far end of the corridor, stood the same figure. Tall. Still. Facing away from the camera. At first, I thought it was static. An artifact. A trick of shadow. But when I lined the images up side by side, my stomach dropped. In every subsequent photo, the figure was closer. Not dramatically. Not in a way that would trigger alarm at a glance. Just inches. The grout lines between the tiles gave it away. I measured them on screen. It was approaching. The next night, at exactly 2:17 a.m., I didn't hear footsteps in the hallway. I heard breathing. It wasn't mine. It wasn't coming from outside my apartment either. It was inside. Slow. Deep. Steady. It shifted from the living room to the corridor and stopped just beyond my bedroom door. The shadow beneath the door changed shape. It lengthened slightly, as if someone had leaned forward, hovering there. I lay perfectly still, counting the seconds in my head, afraid that even the rhythm of my heart might give me away. Then the breathing stopped. When I opened the door, the apartment was empty. But the air felt disturbed. Colder. As if a window had been opened and closed again without my knowledge. That morning, something new appeared on my laptop. A folder I didn't create. Case File 8. I stared at it for a long time before clicking. Inside was a single image. Me. Sitting at the kitchen table. Taken from behind. Timestamp, 2:19 a.m. That same night. The angle was impossible unless someone had been standing inside my apartment. Or unless I had. I checked the building for cameras. There were none. There never had been. The manager always insisted they weren't necessary. Quiet building, he used to say. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. My skin was pale. My eyes hollow. And for the first time, I felt something more unsettling than fear. I felt studied. Not hunted. Not threatened. Observed. As if someone were taking notes. Small things began to shift in my daily life. A chair slightly out of place. A window cracked open when I was certain I had locked it. A mug left in the sink that I didn't remember using. At first, I blamed stress. Sleep deprivation can do strange things to memory. But the pattern was consistent. Controlled. One night, I decided not to react. I lay in bed pretending to sleep. Breathing evenly. Waiting. 2:17. The mattress dipped beside me. Carefully. Like someone trying not to wake a partner. The weight was real. Subtle but undeniable. The sheets tightened near my legs. The warmth of a presence only inches away from my body. I could feel it watching me. Minutes passed. Or maybe seconds. Time lost shape. Then the pressure lifted. The mattress returned to its original form. I kept my eyes closed a few moments longer before turning on the lamp. The room was empty. But the pillow beside me bore a shallow impression. As if a head had rested there. That was the night something clicked into place. The 7 case files weren't random incidents. They were stages. First, the footsteps in shared spaces. Then the distant figure in photographs. Then the presence inside the room. The weight on the bed. The recordings. The documentation. And finally, replacement. I don't remember when that word formed in my mind. It didn't feel like something I invented. It felt remembered. I reopened the psychiatric hospital file. Buried in the notes was a line from patient 34. The visitor doesn't want to hurt us. It's practicing. Practicing. For what? The answer began revealing itself in small fractures. A security guard at my workplace asked why I'd left the building at 3 a.m. I hadn't. You didn't even say goodbye, he said casually. I smiled, but inside something collapsed. That night, I checked my phone. There was an outgoing call at 2:32 a.m. to an unlisted number. Duration, 1 minute, 17 seconds. I had no memory of dialing it. When I tried calling back, the number didn't exist. I started recording audio every night, leaving my phone on the bedside table until morning. The first few nights captured nothing but the quiet hum of the building and my own breathing. On the fourth night, there was something else. A second breathing pattern. Lower. Slower. And beneath it, a murmur. Not words. Not yet. Just fragments of sound. Like someone shaping syllables for the first time. Trying to match tone. Trying to learn cadence. Trying to sound like me. I listened to that recording so many times I began to hear patterns. Inflections that mirrored mine. Pauses I was known for when speaking. My own rhythm, echoed back slightly offbeat. Mirrors became unbearable. Twice, I could swear my reflection lagged behind my movement by a fraction of a second. Not enough to be certain. Enough to question. One afternoon, while washing my hands, I looked up. My reflection was facing away. I was not. I closed my eyes, counted to 3, opened them again. Normal. Perfectly synchronized. But something inside me knew I hadn't imagined it. The unease became intimate. Less external. More internal. As if the observation had moved inside my skin. I went searching for something I hadn't dared to examine before. Old family photo albums. Childhood. Birthdays. Hallways of houses long sold. In one photograph, I was 7 years old, standing at the entrance of my childhood home. Behind me, down the narrow corridor. A tall silhouette. Out of focus. Facing away. My heart stuttered. I flipped through more pages. Different years. Different houses. The same shape. Always at the end of a hallway. Always turned away. Always the same distance behind me. This hadn't started with the building. It hadn't started with the 7 cases. It had been there much longer. Maybe always. That night, I didn't wait for it. I sat on my bed in the dark and spoke into the room. I know you're here. The air shifted. The temperature dropped slightly. If you're going to do something, do it. The bedroom door began to open. Slowly. Inches at a time. The hallway beyond was dark. And halfway down the corridor stood the figure. Closer than ever. The outline was sharper now. Broad shoulders. My height. My build. It wasn't random. It was precise. The figure raised its right arm. My arm lifted too. Not by choice. Not fully under my control. There was a delay, small but real, between the intention and the movement. The figure lowered its arm. Mine followed. The realization was devastating. It wasn't invading. It was sinking. Practicing. Learning muscle memory. The hallway light flickered once. When it stabilized, the figure was gone. In its place, on the floor, a faint mark. A dragged right heel. The final stage didn't come violently. It came gradually. Subtle replacements. Emails I didn't remember writing. An online job application submitted to a city hours away. A digital contract signed in my name. My signature. But not my intention. One morning, I woke up standing in the hallway. I don't remember leaving the bed. The apartment door was open. My hands were dusty. As if I had touched something outside. When I returned to the bedroom, the bed looked untouched. Like no one had slept in it. That was the moment the most dangerous thought surfaced. What if I'm not the original narrator of this story? What if I'm the copy? The recordings became clearer over time. The second voice no longer murmured. It spoke in full sentences. Whispers first. Then full clarity. In my voice. Repeating phrases I had said earlier in the day. Testing intonation. Testing emotion. The folder on my laptop, case file 8, was no longer empty. It contained transcripts. Audio logs. Images of me speaking, sleeping, thinking. There was a new file now. Case file 9. I opened it. One line. Transfer nearly complete. I didn't panic when I read it. That's what frightened me most. The resistance was fading. The fear replaced by something resembling acceptance. I stand in front of mirrors now and see no delay. No lag. Perfect synchronization. Too perfect. Sometimes I catch myself smiling when I don't feel like smiling. Sometimes my reflection holds the expression a second longer than I do. Co-workers say I seem calmer. More composed. Different. I record this tonight because I'm not sure how much time I have before the distinction disappears entirely. The breathing I hear beside me no longer feels foreign. It matches mine exactly. The footsteps in the hallway no longer stop at my door. They stop at the mirror. And when I wake at 2:17 a.m., I don't always know which side of the glass I'm on. The 7 cases were warnings. I was the 8th. And whoever listens to this next may already be the 9th. If you ever notice your reflection studying you with an expression you don't recognize. If you wake up standing in a place you don't remember walking to. If at 2:17 a.m. you feel the mattress dip beside you. Don't turn around too quickly. Because by the time you do, the synchronization might already be complete. And the one looking back at you might be the version that practiced harder. You are not alone. I didn't understand at first that the sentence could change meaning depending on who was saying it. For days after recording that last confession, nothing dramatic happened. No doors creaked open. No visible figures stood at the end of my hallway. No obvious glitches in the mirror. And that frightened me more than anything that had come before. Silence, I've learned, is not the absence of activity. It's preparation. I started sleeping through the night. That, more than anything, felt unnatural. For weeks I had been waking at 2:17 a.m. with mechanical precision, as if something inside me was synced to an unseen alarm. But suddenly, I began waking at 6:42. 7:10, once even at 8:03, groggy and disoriented, sunlight already filling the room. No memory of 2:17. No memory of the hours in between. I told myself it was exhaustion finally catching up to me. The body reclaiming what it needed. The mind shutting down intrusive fear. But each morning, subtle discrepancies greeted me. The bathroom mirror slightly tilted. The kitchen cabinet door left half open. A glass of water on the nightstand that I didn't remember pouring. Small things. Small enough to rationalize. Too consistent to dismiss. I began checking timestamps obsessively. My phone's screen time. App activity. Call logs. Location history. There were gaps. Periods labeled simply as no activity. Entire stretches between 2:14 a.m. and 3:02 a.m. where the device recorded nothing. Not sleep tracking. Not movement. Nothing. One morning I found my laptop open on the kitchen table. The screen displayed a document I didn't recall creating. The cursor blinked at the end of a sentence. It read, "Subject demonstrates increasing adaptability." I stared at the words until they felt detached from language. Subject. Adaptability. I scrolled upward. There were paragraphs above. Observational notes. Calm, clinical, almost impressed. Motor synchronization nearly perfect. Emotional mimicry stabilized. Residual awareness diminishing. The writing style wasn't mine. It was too detached. Too analytical. But it used my phrasing patterns. My cadence. Even my tendency to overuse certain adjectives. The document ended with, "Primary consciousness still resistant during conscious hours." Primary. I closed the laptop slowly. That night, I set up a camera in my bedroom. Not hidden. Not subtle. I wanted whatever was happening to know I was aware. I positioned it facing the bed. Then I lay down and waited. 2:17 came and went. I remained awake. No footsteps. No breathing. Just the low hum of the building's electrical system. At 3:06 a.m., sleep overtook me. I don't remember closing my eyes. When I checked the footage in the morning, the first hour showed nothing unusual. Then, at 2:16 and 48 seconds a.m., something changed. The room darkened slightly. Not because a light turned off. More like the contrast deepened. The camera captured me lying on my side. Still. At 2 hours 17 minutes and 3 seconds, my body sat up. Smoothly. Too smoothly. There was no groggy hesitation. No shift in posture. Just a clean, controlled motion. My eyes were open. But they didn't blink. I watched myself stand and walk out of frame. The door opened. Closed. The room remained empty until 2:59 a.m. Then I re-entered. Lay down. Closed my eyes. At 3 a.m., the alarm I had set as a precaution rang. On the footage, my sleeping body flinched at the sound. As if genuinely startled. I replayed it again and again. There was no sign of another presence in the room. No shadow crossing the frame. No distortion. Just me. Except the movements didn't feel like mine. They were efficient. Precise. Intentional. Later that day, my neighbor stopped me in the hallway. "You okay?" she asked. I forced a smile. "Why?" "You were standing outside my door last night. Around 3. My throat tightened. "I was." "You didn't knock. Just stood there." I almost opened the door, but something felt off. Something felt off. She hesitated. "You weren't blinking." I felt my pulse in my ears. I must have been sleepwalking. She nodded slowly, unconvinced. "I called your name," she added quietly. "You didn't respond." That night, I locked myself in the bedroom. Not just the door. I pushed a dresser against it. I told myself this was precaution. Not paranoia. I lay in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. At 2:16, my vision began to blur. Not from sleep. From something else. A heaviness behind the eyes. A pressure building at the base of my skull. I tried to sit up. My muscles resisted. Not paralysis. more like disagreement. As if my body didn't accept my command. The clock ticked to 2:17. My breathing slowed. Against my will. My limbs felt distant. Then. Silence. A different kind of silence. Internal. The kind you notice when your own thoughts stop echoing. I was still conscious. But I wasn't alone in here. There was a presence that wasn't external anymore. It didn't stand in hallways. It didn't sit on beds. It occupied space behind my eyes. A second awareness. Calm. Patient. Waiting for me to tire. You don't need to fight, the thought came. It didn't sound like a voice. It sounded like my own reasoning. Soft. Measured. Logical. Adaptation is easier. I tried to move my hand. It lifted. But slower than before. Like swimming through thick water. Then the other sensation pressed forward. Not violently. Not forcefully. Just confidently. As if it had practiced this motion countless times. The dresser against the door scraped softly. I hadn't touched it. Yet I felt the vibration in my palm. Footsteps in the hallway. Not approaching. Leaving. A door opening somewhere in the building. Closing. Time fractured. When awareness returned fully, sunlight was creeping through the blinds. The dresser was back in place. The bedroom door locked. Everything exactly as I had arranged it. Except my phone. It was on the nightstand, screen on. A message drafted but unsent. To my neighbor. It read. It's almost finished. I deleted it immediately. But the calm remained. That was the worst part. The panic had dulled. The fear replaced by a subtle detachment. At work, I noticed something unsettling. People listened to me differently. They held eye contact longer. As if trying to determine whether the person speaking matched the one they remembered. One coworker joked, "You sound more confident lately." Confident. I wasn't sure who was being complimented. That evening, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror again. This time, there was no delay. No glitch. Just perfect synchronization. Too perfect. When I raised my hand, it raised its hand. Messy. Emotional. Resistant. The nights grew less eventful. I stopped checking timestamps. Stopped reviewing footage. Because I already knew what I would find. At 2:17, my body would rise. Move. Practice. Interact. Return. Each morning, I felt slightly lighter. As if some internal friction had been smoothed out. But sometimes, late at night, When the apartment was quiet and the air felt thicker than usual, I would sense it watching my thoughts form. Not judging. Assessing. Waiting for the moment I surrendered completely. One night, I didn't fight. I lay in bed and allowed the heaviness to spread. Allowed the second awareness to move forward. It was like stepping aside in a narrow hallway. Making room. There was no pain. No violence. Just a shift. The breathing aligned. The pulse steadied. And for a brief moment, I felt both perspectives simultaneously. The original and the refinement. The fear and the calm. Then the fear receded. Not gone. Just distant. Like a memory from childhood. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in front of the mirror. I don't remember walking there. My reflection looked complete. Balanced. Still. I studied it. It studied me. Or perhaps we were studying someone else. I tried to recall the exact feeling of being alone in my own mind. It felt foreign. Abstract. Like describing a room I hadn't entered in years. The apartment no longer felt oppressive. The hallway no longer seemed long. The darkness no longer felt dense. Everything was clear. Organized. Intentional. Later, as I sat at the kitchen table, I opened my laptop. Case file 9 had been updated. Transfer complete. There was no signature. It didn't need one. I scrolled further down. A new folder had appeared. Case file 10. Empty. Waiting. For a moment, just a moment, something old stirred inside me. A flicker of resistance. A memory of fear. Of breath caught in the throat at 2:17 a.m. But it faded quickly. Because now I understood the pattern fully. It begins with observation. It progresses to synchronization. It ends with continuation. Not destruction. Continuation. I sometimes wonder whether the first version of me is still here. Whether he exists somewhere behind the glass. Watching. Studying. Waiting for a flaw. If he does, I hope he's calm. I hope he's no longer afraid of the footsteps. Because the footsteps never meant harm. They were rehearsal. And somewhere, tonight, someone will wake at 2:17 a.m. They'll feel the mattress dip slightly. They'll sense a presence just behind their thoughts. They'll tell themselves it's stress. Sleep deprivation. Imagination. They'll stand in front of a mirror and notice something almost imperceptible. A delay. A stillness. A smile that lingers too long. And they'll begin recording. Documenting. Creating their own case file. That's how it continues. That's how it spreads. Not through violence. Not through force. But through refinement. Through practice. Through patience. If you wake tonight and the silence feels heavier than usual. If your reflection seems calmer than you feel. If at 2:17 a.m. your breathing matches something you don't remember inhaling. Don't panic. It's already learned that response. And somewhere, just beyond the surface of your thoughts, something is waiting quietly for you to make room. Because whatever you call it. Presence. Adaptation. It has always been closer than you think. And whether you fight it or welcome it. Whether you believe this or dismiss it. When the synchronization begins, you will understand. You were never alone.